Hi, it's Melissa from Special Ed Law Mom. Welcome to my new series, Special Ed Story Time. I am planning to share stories with you of my experience because maybe somewhere in there will be something that can help you. So, let's start at the very beginning. I know I've sung that before on this channel. Sorry if you've heard that. Um, so our journey has been long, and I recently was reviewing some emails and came across something that I had forgotten about and thought this would be a great special ed story time to share with you. So you'll be seeing more of these coming out as we go on. But so our youngest was in preschool, or our oldest was in preschool, and she has autism, and she was really struggling at the time. Thankfully, she has gotten the help that she's needed and is quite successful in her abilities and in a career and education. But I digress. So we're in preschool, we're having tantrums, we're melting down, we're hearing all these therapies we need to do and all these things. And there's a private school here that actually partnered with our school district, and they worked together. They would do preschool in one of our public schools for a small group of kids. You had to apply, and they would do ABA and more intensive therapies for the kids as if they were attending the private preschool, but they were the preschool was classroom was run by the private school, but it was housed in our local school. So it was the best of both worlds, I guess you could say. So our daughter did that for a year. And then, after that, we were either going to have to pay for her to go to this private school, which at the time, 20 years ago, was $25,000 a year, or she was going to go back to our regular public school. And there's a whole story behind that and what happened. But let's just say she was going back to our public school. And so we have where she has her cute little graduation with the preschool, and she's supposed to be going back into public school, and she's going to be entering, I believe, kindergarten. And so we've got the summer break coming, and this kid needs consistent services. And the private school is saying, well, we don't provide summer school. That's just not what we do. If you want to be a part of our program, you can pay for it, but we don't provide summer school, otherwise known as ESY or extended school year. And the public school is saying, well, that's nice that she's coming back to us, but um, we don't provide services until she comes back to us. And she's not coming back to us until August. So have a nice summer. Doesn't work for a kid who has autism, who needs consistency. That's the whole point of ESY, is so that they can have consistency. And so I knew that I was like, this cannot be. How can you have a kid in an intensive program and all of a sudden they just don't need anything for 3 months until the public school decides to help them in the fall? That's not okay with me. So I tried to argue that to the school system. Didn't care. Have a nice summer, Mrs. Wallace. So I wrote the state Office of Education, started sending emails to them that went directly to their attorney saying, help, this isn't okay. And they didn't know what to do with that. I don't know if they'd never had that scenario. They'd never had a family push that scenario. Maybe they had just had those families just pay for summer services at the private program. I don't know. But it didn't make sense to me. And I knew there had to be something in the law, or there was a flaw in the law, because kids going from private to public shouldn't just have nothing while that transition happens, especially in those early years where early intervention is so critical. So I actually sat down and read my special education law book, and I went through every statute in IDEA. And I came across, I'll put the statute down below. I didn't make a note of it for today, but I will put it in the description. I came across this statute, a random statute that talked about who is responsible for providing FAPE. And at the end of the day, If an entity receives public funding, they are required to provide FAPE. Okay, so you may be asking, how does that relate to your situation here? Well, there was a partnership between our school system and the private school to provide the preschool services, right? And where were those services provided? They were provided in our local public school, which the funding for that school to operate comes from public funds. The public pays for that. Not only that, the private preschool receives Medicaid funding, which is also public funding. And so, therefore, they both, the school system and the private preschool, both in their own way, receive public funding, and they were sharing a facility that receives or is funded through public funds. And so, therefore, FAPE was required regardless. Okay. Now, you could say, well, it's a private school, and we could get into that whole argument of how do private schools have to have IEPs, and that's not the argument I had. The argument I had was my child is going from one publicly funded program to another. The private program is funded through Medicaid and is sharing funds with the public school system. And of course, the public school is publicly funded. So my child is going from one publicly funded program to another publicly funded program, and FAPE needs to be provided regardless. There needs to be a seamless transition. And so I took all of that to the state to say the private school doesn't get to wash their hands and the public school doesn't get to wash their hands, because at the end of the day, my kid needs help during this transition time. And the state dragged their feet on that for months, months and months and months, to the point that I had to pay for my daughter to have private social skills, private speech, private OT, all these things that she would have had at ESY with the school system. So we paid for those things privately, and we gave the school system notice that we were putting them on notice. They were refusing to provide FAPE, and therefore we would be seeking reimbursement. We also took all to the state, who, like I said, took months to come back. They didn't know what to do with it. Once I was able to finally cite the IDEA statute about public funding and lay it all out that everybody's publicly funded and my kid just doesn't go without for 3 months, they were a little quicker to come back with a response. And so at the end of the day, we had to put up the money up front, but we paid for our daughter to have the services that she would have had in the school system. And the school system reimbursed us. I want to say it was like 2,500 bucks that they reimbursed us. We used our insurance for some of it, but then we told them, too bad, so sad. You don't get to just pay the copays from our insurance and use up our benefit for OT, speech, whatever. You don't get to do that. No, you get to pay the cash price for the services that we use, and our insurance gets to be reimbursed. So they ended up paying us over $2,500 for that summer because they couldn't get it together and wouldn't offer our daughter ESY. And the state was slow to come up with anything as far as a resolution. Um, and we prevailed. So it does help to know your rights. And if you don't know them, it does help to actually read the law. And believe it or not, the people that made up the law, they actually thought of a lot of things. And so there's some flaws in IDEA, but not as many as you think. There's also a lot of protections. So that's my first story time to you, how we got the school system to pay for the summer program that we wanted with private providers. I will do another video about how you can do that. It's about giving them 10-day notice, but that's the first in my series of special ed story time. And so I hope it's helpful. If it was, like, subscribe, comment, join me on Facebook, send me a message at specialeducationlawmom@gmail.com. And until next time, make it a great day. Thanks. Bye.